Barriers to entry arise three ways: through government action, through control over an essential resource, or through economies of scale. Let's talk about government action. The government may create a monopoly by granting exclusive franchise rights, licenses, copyrights, and patents. Here are 5 examples. The King of England granted a charter to the East India Company, giving it a monopoly for 15 years on trade with all countries east of the Cape of Good Hope and west of the Straits of Magellan. The U.S. Congress passed private express statutes that created a monopoly for the delivery of first-class mail in 1792. Anyone carrying first-class mail other than the USPS is breaking the law and faces prosecution by the Department of Justice. The U.S. Patent Office granted Viagra a patent. Anyone selling Viagra or its chemical equivalent other than Pfizer or a licensee is breaking the law and faces prosecution by Pfizer and their patent attorneys. The State Corporation Commission forbids anyone other than Dominion Virginia Power from selling residential electricity in Dominion service areas. Anyone selling electricity in Dominion Virginia Power's territory is breaking the law and faces prosecution by the State Corporation Commission. The 5th example is that the City of Richmond and County of Henrico have monopolies on water and sewer in their jurisdictions. Control over essential resource can also be a barrier to entry. Honestly, it's hard to find a situation where control leads to a monopoly, but it can be a significant barrier. Here are some examples. De Beers is often cited as a firm that acquires its monopoly power because it controls so much of the retail diamond market. It owns most of the world's uncut diamonds and controls the output from many of the world's mines. When you look more closely at De Beers, I think you'll often find that De Beers gets much of its power through government action. It has contracts with governments that give it control over the diamonds produced or mined in that country. So the link between control of the resource and government action gets a little blurry sometimes. But nonetheless, it does have significant control because it does have a huge supply of the diamonds. Second, what's now called Alcoa, back then it was called the Aluminum Corporation of America, prior to World War II, produced almost all of the aluminum in the U.S. because it had contracts with hydroelectric companies, giving it exclusive access to the cheap electricity needed to produce aluminum at low cost. And finally, J.D. Rockefeller created barriers to entry in the petroleum market by signing contracts with railroads in which the railroad agreed to transport products for Standard Oil and agreed not to transport products for competitors of Standard Oil. When several competitors began to build a pipeline to carry crude oil to the coast, Rockefeller attempted to buy land between the wells and the coast to prevent the competitors from acquiring the land right they would need to complete the pipeline. So Rockefeller tried to control the transportation needed to sell the good, and by having control over that transportation, he acquired control over the product itself, which was petroleum products. Third possibility, monopolies we often talk about monopolies arising because of economies of scale. In this case, we say the monopoly is a natural monopoly. A monopoly is natural when economies of scale are so great that the cost of serving a market is minimized when one firm can produce the product more efficiently than 2 or more firms. An example of this might be Dominion Virginia Power. Many people think that many people would argue that having one electric company provide all of Richmond with electricity is a good thing because one firm can distribute electricity more efficiently than 2 firms could. Why pay for 2 sets of power lines when one is sufficient? This is often used as a rationale for regulation. Since people believe that one firm is more efficient, they tend to be in favor of granting the firm an exclusive franchise and then regulating its price. maybe the best example of a natural monopoly would be a sole gas station at an isolated intersection on an interstate highway. The traffic is enough to support one firm, but it would not be enough to support two firms. Therefore, one and only one exists, and being the only firm in the surrounding area gives it significant market power.